Hello, this is Zaqen, and you are listening to the 9th Minute. Learn all about it with this dial. As viewed from the Earth, the Sun passes in front of 13, not 12 constellations during the course of 1 year. The ecliptic runs exactly along the middle of the zodiac constellations, and a 13th constellation named Ophiuchus by ancient astronomers is completely ignored by the horoscopes. When the sun sign system was set up more than 2,000 years ago, the sun's path was divided into 12 equally spaced signs regardless of a constellation size. Cancer, for example, is a small constellation, and Pisces is very large, but both were accorded an equal 1/12 of the sun's annual path. This simplification is the result of early astronomers' dislike of the number 13. Superstition about the number 13 has been with us thousands of years and still persists today. Claiming that there are only 12 constellations on the ecliptic is similar to maintaining that the Earth is flat. The Sun is in front of Ophiuchus, of the stars of Ophiuchus, during the first half of December. About 1 person in 20 is an Ophiuchus, but few of them know it. Although overlooked by the zodiac, Ophiuchus, the serpent bearer, is the god of medicine and always shown with a staff with a serpent around it. Superstition aside, about 1 person in 20 is born under Ophiuchus. Are you an Ophiuchus? If you were born between November 28th and November 29th and December 18th, you are. This word, Ophiuchus, is derived from 2 Greek words meaning serpent and holding. One tidbit of astronomical information most people seem to know is their sun sign, but few people know what it actually means. Does your horoscope seem a little bit off? Does it seem to be written for someone else? Chances are it is. If you ask 100 people what their sun sign is, most of them will be able to tell you. But the fact is that they may not be correct. The star dial sky map shows the 13 constellations that form the ecliptic. Ignored by the horoscopes, the constellation of Ophiuchus between Scorpio and Sagittarius is the key to understanding the end of times. Ophiuchus' heel is crushing the serpents in the constellation Scorpio. He holds and tries to keep the fiery flying serpent who said, serpent's kaput, is reaching for a crown, constellation Corona Borealis. The serpent constellation, Scorpio, is seen struggling vainly in the powerful grasp of the man who is named Ophiuchus. In Latin, he is called Serpentarius. He is at one and the same moment shown to be seizing the serpent with his 2 hands and treading on the very heart of the scorpion, marked by a deep red star, Antares. In Scorpio, we see merely the effort to wound Ophiuchus in the heel, but here we see the effort of the serpent to seize the crown, which is situated immediately over the serpent's head and to which he is looking up and reaching forth. The contest is for dominion. Not only does the serpent fail in the attempt of capturing the crown, but is himself utterly defeated and trodden underfoot. To view a demo of the sky map and how it works, navigate to www.stardial.us. Learn all about it with the star dial. Click on Demo and use the arrow to find your date of birth. Find out where the sun was when you were born. You could be an Ophiuchus. If opposites attract, use the star dial to find your opposite. Enjoy, and let me know what you think of the star dial by contacting me on Facebook, Zaqen. The third aisle is positive proof the horoscopes label people incorrectly and are a false teaching. So what is the meaning of the signs and wonders in the heavens? We will pick up this conversation thread when we return from a quick break. Hello, this is Zaqen, back to continue our conversations about the signs and wonders in the heavens. What is the meaning of the signs and wonders in the heavens? As you look around, it is obvious the world is coming apart at the seams. There is strife and chaos, war and starvation, lies and deception everywhere, and a faltering economy that is at the edge of collapse. Which brings us to the question, what is really happening? Within the next decade, numerous significant astronomical events will take place. Will the world end? The Mayans consider December 21st, 2012 to be the completion of two major influential cycles of approximately 26,000 years in both the precession cycle of the Earth and the direct alignment of the Sun with the center of the Milky Way galaxy. The odds of these two events occurring at exactly the same time are phenomenal. A small minority of people believe the year 2012 will bring cataclysmic events unequaled in human history. They pictured the world being destroyed by fire, pole shifts, tsunamis, losing our sun to the black hole at the center of our galaxy, and maybe even an alien invasion. But that's not going to happen. According to math and the science of astronomy, more than likely, nothing will happen. However, because people will want something to happen, they will make things happen, and very likely unpleasant things. Karl Marx observed that when a theory grips the masses, it becomes a material force. The doctrine of Armageddon has gripped the imagination of several extremely motivated and influential groups, including some people in the United States, Israel, and the Muslim world, and the doctrine is quickly becoming an unstoppable force across the world. So what is Armageddon? Armageddon is the great consuming war to be fought among the people of the earth. Apocalypse is the natural or supernatural cataclysm expected to come after Armageddon. Now, trying to oppose a natural catastrophe such as a volcano or earthbound comet is pointless. Armageddon is different. Of all the potential catastrophes, Armageddon is the only one we might have the power to prevent. In the final clash between good and evil, those who accept Christ and those who do not, some experts predict 2 to 3 billion people are supposed to perish. Evangelical Christians are a group eager to precipitate Armageddon. They look forward to the rapture, the exalted moment when, before the battle of Armageddon begins, true and faithful Christians are literally lifted up into the air to join God and have the opportunity to observe the battle from heaven. We have a caller on line 1. Hello, this is Reha. Whom am I speaking with?
This is Savant. How are you doing tonight?
I'm fine, thank you. And how are you?
I'm doing quite well. And listening to your show sounds interesting topic tonight.
Thank you. We're discussing the meaning of the signs and wonders in the heavens, the difference between Armageddon and Apocalypse, and this very interesting concept of the rapture, which is a predominant belief among Protestant Christians. Supposedly prior to the Battle of Armageddon, true and faithful Christians are literally lifted up into the air to join God and have the opportunity to observe this battle from heaven. What a concept.
Interestingly enough, it is not just simply a Christian belief. The very word rapture, and I've heard many people say, well, this concept was developed out of imagination, because the word rapture does not even appear in the Bible. But the word rapture comes from specific verses where it talks about a gathering together, and in the Latin Vulgate the word raptio was used. So considering that it came from the Latin Vulgate, which is what the Catholics use, the word rapture actually came from the Latin Vulgate version that the Catholics used to read. So the fact that people say that the word rapture does not actually appear in the English Bible, the historical evidence shows that it appeared in texts actually before the King James Version. And there is a church father.
You know entirely too much about this. That's very very in-depth information about the rapture. What does the meaning of the word have to do with what Christians believe about it?
Well, first of all, the term rapture is taken from a few verses that I'll get into a little bit of exposition on it. If you go back to where there are some people that say that the concept of the rapture came about through Darby and some girl that had a vision when she was 6, some Scottish girl from the 1800s. It actually, the concept of the rapture existed long before that. In the 3rd century, there was what was called a church father. His name was Ephraim the Syrian in the 3rd century, who wrote extensively about the rapture that would occur in the end of time. Now, I know that you had mentioned specifically a relationship between the apocalypse and Armageddon and how the rapture fits in all this. There's actually scriptures as far as the signs in the heavens that you were speaking of, and you'd mentioned something about the number 13 being a sign of bad luck, and that's the way that it was commonly thought of throughout history. Actually,
most people are uncomfortable with it because it's usually the sign of change. Yes.
Actually, scripturally, the number 13 is a sign of rebellion and chaos. The first time that it's used collectively together is in Genesis chapter 14, where it talks about in the 13th year they rebelled. It speaks of rebellion and 13 for the first usage together in the same verse. But going into the book of Isaiah in chapter 13, interestingly enough, where it talks about the end of time and when things begin to occur, in verse 6 it says, "To howl, for the day of the Lord is at hand." And then it speaks of things that begin to occur. In verse 10, "The stars of heaven and the constellations will not give their light. The sun will be darkened in its going forth. The moon shall cause her light not to shine." There will be all these things that happen. And then in verse 13 of chapter 13, which I find to be a very interesting mathematical formula there, "I will shake the heavens, and the earth shall remove out of her place in the wrath of the Lord of hosts and in the day of his fierce anger." And it speaks of the earth being shaken forth to where it starts to go out of its orbit, and continuing in relationship to that in Isaiah 13:13. In chapter 24, verse 19, it says, "The earth is utterly broken down, clean dissolved, and moved exceedingly, and it shall reel to and forth like a drunkard, removed like a cottage." And it speaks of this happening in the end times. Now, in relationship to Armageddon and the apocalypse, let's keep in mind that the term apocalypse means something that is revealed, a revelation. That's why the book of Revelation is called Apocalypse sometimes. When Jesus was talking to his apostles on what they called the Olivet Discourse on the Mount of Olives, when they asked him about what would be the signs of the time of the end, and he said, "Don't be deceived. There will be rumors of war. There will be pestilences, famines, earthquakes, etc." And then he mentions of the fact of the fig tree putting forth its leaves in the end time. That is a sign of the restoration of Israel as a nation in 1948. But he specifically says in verse 36 of chapter 22 of Luke, "Watch therefore and pray always that you may be accounted worthy to escape all these things that shall come to pass and stand before the Son of Man." The fact that he says that there's a capability to escape these things is quite interesting, because commonly referred to in the scriptures, the period of tribulation, which is a 7-year period, before Armageddon. Armageddon occurs at the end of the 7-year tribulation. Armageddon is the battle when Christ, all of his saints and angels come back to the plain of Megiddo to fight over Jerusalem against all the forces of the earth that are in confederacy against God. But it specifically says in the book of Romans, when it refers to the day of wrath, it speaks of those that are against the truth of God shall receive wrath, and in Romans 5:9 it says that we shall be saved from the wrath through him, meaning Christ. Speaking of the Christians being saved from the wrath through Christ, and that's in Romans 5:9. Then as you go forward...
I don't debate that, but still I'm not sure how that means that people will actually be raptured into the sky.
Well, just a moment, and I'll get to that. I just wanted to lay the groundwork. In 1 Thessalonians chapter 1, verse 10, it also says, Jesus who delivers us from the wrath to come. So it says we will be delivered from that wrath. Okay, if you go into the book of Thessalonians and in the book of Corinthians, there are descriptions of exactly how this rapture occurs. Okay, and in the book of 1 Corinthians chapter 15, it says, I show you a mystery. We shall not all sleep, meaning be dead, but we shall all be changed in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trump, for the trumpet shall sound, and the dead shall be raised incorruptible, and we shall be changed. It's talking about a change that occurs in just a moment of time. Okay? And so it speaks specifically about the fact that the Christians will have a transition that will occur, and it says that they will be raised and seek and be meeting with the Lord in the air. And it's specifically in 1 Thessalonians chapter 4. It says, the coming of the Lord shall not precede those which are asleep, meaning those which are dead. The Lord himself shall descend from heaven with a shout, with the voice of the archangel, with the trump of God, and the dead in Christ shall rise first. Then, when we which are alive and remain shall be caught up together, that's where that word raptio is used in the Latin Vulgate, caught up together, with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air, and so shall we ever be with the Lord. And so that once again says that there is an escape, so to speak. In the book of Revelation, go ahead.
Yeah, it just seems to me that means that we are going to be lifted up towards heaven, not necessarily the physical air that surrounds our planet.
What is the definition of heaven? It's anything that is above the earth, but there are specific levels. When it says that we reach up into the air to meet him, that is not a physical returning of Jesus Christ. If you go into the book of Zechariah, it says when he returns, that his feet will actually touch down on the Mount of Olives. So there are two different, the physical return comes at the end of the tribulation. The rapture occurs before the tribulation. If you go into the book of Revelation, which speaks of the time of the tribulation and all the judgments that occur, it's very interesting that the term wrath is used 13 times. It's also very interesting that the word dragon, which is a symbol of the devil, is used 13 times. And when you go into Revelation chapter 3, verse 10, it says, because you have kept the word of my patience, I also will keep you from the hour of temptation, which is meaning the tribulation, which shall come upon the world and to try them that dwell upon the earth. Now, very interestingly, people that deny that this is going to occur seem to overlook the fact that in chapter 3, verse 22 of Revelation, it speaks of that he has been speaking these things unto the churches. In chapter 3, verse 22. The word church is never used again in the entire book of Revelation until chapter 22, verse 16. Why? Because the church is not there during the book of Revelation. They've already been raptured out.
Maybe they're in hiding. Maybe they're somewhere out of the way, protected. but not necessarily.
They're definitely hiding somewhere out of the way, protected, and let me show you exactly where they are hiding. In 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, when it talks about the Antichrist coming, it speaks very specifically about what will occur. It says in verse 3, "Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day," talking about the day that Christ comes, "shall not come except there come a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition." The term falling away in Greek is the word apostasia. Apostasia means to depart away from. Many people believe that that's talking about a departure away from the faith. But what it is actually talking about, in the first century, it was understood in that verse that the departure away from was talking about the saints departing away from the earth, going into heaven. When you look at the literal meaning of the Greek word apostasia, it means to stand up away from in a different dimension, standing to the side, looking upon what is going on in a different dimension. That's an exact description of rapture.
Are you sure that the word used is dimension? And in a sense of, a different dimension, perhaps they're talking about a different frame of mind, or, a different location. But I'm not sure if dimension is that closely quantified in this particular instance.
Let me ask you to describe what heaven would be. Is heaven not another dimension within dimensions? It exists everywhere all the time.
Okay, I would have to say that heaven is a dimension beyond the physical and beyond the psychic. It's definitely a different dimension that you have to reach by transcending our own dimensions. So yes, I would say that it's a different dimension, but I'm not sure that the way we interpret this definition really includes the word dimension. I am dubious about the translation.
Okay, let me give you another example here. In the book of Revelation, right after it talks about what has been said to the churches, this revelation came from an angel, from Christ through the angel to John the Apostle, who was on the island of Patmos in Greece. And in verse 1 of chapter 4, it says, "After this I, John, looked, and behold, a door was opened in heaven. And the first voice which I heard was as if it were a trumpet talking with me. And it says, 'Come up here, and I will show you things which will come hereafter.' And immediately I was in the Spirit. And behold, a throne was set in heaven, and one sat on that throne." This is an exact description of the rapture. It's talking about him going into heaven, into a spiritual dimension, and being in a glorified spiritual body, which is exactly the same way that Christ ascended into heaven. So, I guess anybody could try and rationalize their way out of this, because if they don't want to be confronted with the concept, then it's easy for the analytical human mind to try and reason its way out of it. But what I have found is that the Scriptures interpret themselves, so that it is not necessary for us to put our own interpretation in them. I just read several verses that all use the same phraseology about a trumpet making a sound and then the people being risen, and that's in several different books written by several different people. Mm-hmm. And so they kind of connect the dots together.
Yes. Well, you seem extremely knowledgeable about this, and I thank you for calling. And I appreciate you taking the time to describe for us the Protestant Christian view of the rapture.
Well, I appreciate it too. The key is when you look at the Revelation, like chapter 19, it talks about the army coming back to fight in the Battle of Armageddon, and it gives a direct description of those saints that have been raptured to heaven as being the army coming back. So that's where it all plays into Armageddon. I've enjoyed it, and look forward to hearing your other programs.
Okay, thank you very much for calling.
Thank you.
We'll be back in a few minutes from our break and continue our conversation about the events of Winter Solstice 2012.
One astronomy tidbit most people seem to know is their sun sign. As viewed from the Earth, the sun passes in front of 13 constellations, not 12, during the course of 1 year. This path of the sun is called the ecliptic. The ecliptic runs exactly along the middle of the zodiac constellations and the 13th constellation named Ophiuchus, or the Serpent Bearer. When the sun sign system was set up more than 2,000 years ago, the sun's path was divided into 12 equally spaced signs. This simplification is the result of early astronomers' dislike of the number 13. Superstitions about the number 13 have been with us for thousands of years and still persist today. Claiming that there are only 12 constellations is similar to maintaining the Earth is flat. The sun is in front of the stars of Ophiuchus during the first half of December. About 1 person in 20 is an Ophiuchus, but few of them know it. Although overlooked by the zodiac, Ophiuchus, or the serpent bearer, is the god of medicine and always shown with a staff with a serpent around it. Star dials showing the 13 constellation boundaries are available in our store and also on eBay.
This is Zaqen, and with only 308 days remaining until December 21st, 2012, people are thinking about how to get through this event, which according to science and astronomy will basically be a non-event. However, many people view it as perhaps an apocalyptic type event. So with Winter Solstice 2012 fast approaching, everyone from private enterprise to the Vatican is involved in this global ready-made marketing campaign for apocalyptic destruction theories. But we know nothing will happen. The mathematical probability our sun will be engulfed by the frozen star at the center of our galaxy is 0. I think we're going to be safe. But what people want to believe is that the gravitational pull of the frozen star at the center of our galaxy will destroy our sun on December 21st, 2012. The Maya had extensive knowledge of astronomy, including a phenomenon called precession. Precession is the wobbling of the Earth's axis due to the flatness of the Earth itself and the gravitational influence of the sun and the moon. This causes the sun to run behind the constellations of the zodiac. We are now -1 constellation behind, and that will be 2 in a matter of centuries. The center of the Milky Way galaxy is in Sagittarius, and at some point, at some moment in the year, every December 17th through the 18th, the sun is near or perfectly aligned with this center in the sky. There are several theories about what will happen on December 21st, 2012, and astronomers know this will basically be a non-event because nothing will happen. This does not stop people from speculating. Science has never been able to compete with imagination. The upside to this controversy is that people will be more curious about the universe as we approach 2012 and study the sky more. The events will generate a lot of interest in math and science and, cause people to really examine their existence and examine their knowledge of our universe, particularly the stars. December 21st, 2012 falls on a Friday. Fortunately, by Monday, December 24th, Christmas Eve, people will be free of worry and able to enjoy Christmas. In combination with the Christmas holiday, we will have a long weekend through Wednesday, December 26, 2012, enough time for people to recover and gain normalcy. Cautions to ensure that you, your family, and friends are safe and prepared. Short-term planning should involve a 24-hour survival kit. Everyone should have enough food, water, and emergency supplies to last 72 hours. Supply in both short and long-term planning is energy. In the event the power grid fails, it would be important to have a backup power supply. Though not everyone can be off the grid, it is possible to take at least one circuit in your home off the grid. A hybrid wind-solar unit makes a lot of sense because when the sun does not shine, the wind usually blows, and generation is theoretically feasible almost around the clock. Countries throughout the world will experience similar problems as we will in the United States. Looking forward to our conversation next time.